Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Mace, and I'm back here after a long while with a new UFO podcast. And I'm sorry about it taking so long. I lost somebody pretty close to me, and I've also been extremely sick lately. And this is the first time that I really felt good and felt up to doing this, so I figured I'd go ahead and record it. But this time I'm looking at the Aurora UFO incident of 1897. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at it. Now, the Aurora UFO incident, as it was reported, occurred on April 17th in 1897, and locals tell the story of a UFO that crashed on a farm near that part of Texas. The incident is usually claimed to have resulted in the fatality of the person that was flying the UFO. It said that the pilot was an alien and was not of this world, and that they were buried at the Aurora Cemetery. There's a place marker there for a grave, but it has since been removed. And it's just speculated that an alien was buried there. There's never been any concrete evidence or anything like that. Now, there is a sign outside the cemetery that talks about the oldest known graves there being from illness and meningitis, and it talks about the spaceship that crashed and the pilot that was buried there. And it says that an epidemic of crop failure bypassed by the railroad the original town of Aurora almost disappeared, and veterans of the Civil War and Korean War conflicts are interred there. Now, as far as the incident itself goes, I'll go ahead and read the original article by S.E. Hayden called "The Windmill Demolishes It," and it was on the Dallas Morning News, page 5. About 6 o'clock this morning, the early risers of Aurora were astonished at the sudden appearance of the airship, which had been sailing through the country. It was traveling due north and much nearer the earth than ever before. Evidently, some of the machinery was out of order, for it was making a speed of only 10 or 12 miles an hour, and gradually settling towards the earth. It sailed directly over the public square, and when it reached the north part of town, collided with the tower of Judge Proctor's windmill and went to pieces with a terrific explosion, scattering debris over several acres of ground, wrecking the windmill and water tank, destroying the judge's flower garden. The pilot of the ship is supposed to have been the only one on board, and while his remains are badly disfigured, enough of the original has been picked up to show that he was not an inhabitant of this world. Mr. T.J. Weems, the United States Signal Services officer at this place and an authority on astronomy, gives it as his opinion that he was a native of the planet Mars. Papers found on his person, evidently the record of his travels, are written in some unknown hieroglyphics and cannot be deciphered. The ship was too badly wrecked to form any conclusion as to its construction or motive power. It was built of an unknown metal, resembling somewhat a mixture of aluminum and silver, and it must have weighed several tons. The town is full of people today who are viewing the wreck and gathering specimens of the strange metal from the debris. The pilot's funeral will take place at noon tomorrow. Currently, wreckage from the crash site was dumped into a nearby well under the damaged windmill, and some ended up with the alien grave. And the mystery was also added to by the story of Mrs. Brawley Oates, who purchased Judge Proctor's property around 1835. Oates cleaned out the debris from the well in order to use it as a water source, but later developed an extremely severe case of arthritis, which he claimed to be the result of the contaminated water from the wreckage dumped into the well. As a result, Oates sealed up the well with a concrete slab and placed an outbuilding on top of the slab, and this was apparently done in 1945. The only picture I could find of the alien from the incident looked like your stereotypical gray alien, except with pointy ears, kind of like a Vulcan, instead of having just the ear holes that the usual gray aliens had. But I've included that image here for you to look at. But it seems like something that would have scared and certainly bothered people at the time. From what I can tell, also, the spaceship was cigar-shaped and not a flying saucer, as a lot of those would be later on around the 1940s. Now that stems basically from drawings that I've seen of it, and the fact that most of the images of it and descriptions describe like a cigar-shaped thing with portholes. Now, Aurora was a fairly small town with a lot of good people that were working hard to just survive and make it through in hard times. And even today, there's only about 1,500 people there. But still, there was a hoax theory that got passed around by Time magazine in 1980. In an interview with Etta Peggs, an 86-year-old Aurora resident, claimed that Hayden had fabricated the entire story, saying that he wrote it as a joke and to bring interest to Aurora. The railroad bypassed us and the town was dying. Peggs further claimed that Judge Proctor never operated a windmill on his property, a statement later refuted as part of the UFO Hunters episode, which found the base of the wooden water pump the town constructed around the well. Paranormal researcher Jerry Drake, on April 2020 episode of Monster Talk Live, challenged that finding, noting that well was clearly a bucket well of modern construction and not a well designed for use with a windmill. So, and even today you can't find that windmill. Now, there's been multiple investigations into the alleged crash. In 1998, Dallas TV station KDFW aired a lengthy report about it, but they were unable to find conclusive evidence. And on December 19th, 2005, UFO Files first aired an episode related to it called The Texas Roswell. They found two new eyewitnesses to the crash. Mary Evans was one of them, and Charlie Stevens was another. And they talked about seeing the airship with the smoke as it headed towards Aurora. They investigated the Aurora cemetery and uncovered a grave marker that appeared to show some flying saucer of a sort, as well as readings from its metal detector. MUFON asked for permission to exhume the site, but the Cemetery Association declined. After MUFON investigation, the mysterious marker that disappeared from the cemetery, and a 3-inch pipe was placed into the ground. MUFON's metal detector no longer picked up any metal readings from the ground, thus it was presumed that metal was removed from the grave. And there's also the UFO Hunters investigation in 19th of November 2008. And they had one notable change, and that was Tim Oates, the grandson of Beverly Oates, and now owner of the property where the sealed well was reportedly buried, allowed the investigators to unseal the well in order to examine it for debris. Water was taken from the well, which tested normal except for large amounts of aluminum present. The well had no significant contents. It was stated in the episode that any large pieces of metal had been removed from the well from a past owner of the property. Further, the windmill base near the well site, which allegedly refuted Miss Pegg's statements from the Time magazine article that Judge Proctor never had a windmill on his property. In addition, Aurora Cemetery was once again examined, although the Cemetery Association still did not permit exhumation. Using ground-penetrating radar and photos from prior visits, an unmarked grave was found in the area near other 1890s grave. However, the grave was badly deteriorated, and the radar could not conclusively prove what type of remains existed. The owner gave them pieces of metal that mostly contained aluminum and an unknown element. So that's all the investigations into it that I could put. Last thing that I want to mention is that there was a movie made in 1986 called The Aurora Encounter, and it is extremely inaccurate. It includes the right city name and the right year, but that's about it. Otherwise, it is pretty much a completely new story. The one cool thing they did was they had a Make-A-Wish patient as the main movie star, which I think was nice for the time. And it's not like they got any social media or internet press out of it. So, and apparently the director stayed in contact with the young child with progeria until he passed in 1992. So that was a nice story to find out about it. But if you're looking for a movie that would further illuminate this, or something that serves kind of as cliff notes or kind of shows you a factual version of it, this is definitely not it, and it's made more as like a C-movie version of E.T. So overall, I would say that there's not really much proof that this actually happened aside from the newspaper story and the accounts by the extremely elderly interviews that they had. It would be nice if eventually they allowed them to exhume, or there was an extremely more detailed version of ground penetrating radar they could bring in that would show them what was actually in the grave, kind of like we saw in Jurassic Park, except without the shotgun shell, obviously. But yeah, I was interested by this because of how long ago it took place, and I thought it would be a cool thing to look at, especially considering the drawing that I saw of the gray-looking alien. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm getting a lot of UFO books because of what I've heard about Wikipedia and the guerrilla skeptics kind of, skewing it more towards everything being a conspiracy and people shouldn't pay attention to it, and, omitting facts and everything. So if I find anything else related to this in the books that I've ordered, I will, of course, update it. But anyway, I hope all of you enjoyed it and that you're doing well, and I will see you in my next podcast.